Countdown. Why? Because we're live. Hello, I'm Willie Bragg. Welcome to another edition of this program, where we can sit here and have a nice little chat about politics. And that's what I love to do. And sometimes it's depressing, sometimes it's funny, sometimes it's optimistic. I don't know what the fuck you can call this today. I guess negative. But we'll start with what's going on. There's a lot of talk about creeping authoritarianism. And in our political spectrum, one side accuses the other of being authoritarian. There are authoritarian regimes around this world. Some regimes in some countries are more authoritarian than others. The United States supports a lot of authoritarian countries. Historically, it's been a thing for many years for the United States to do that. Whether we're talking about apartheid in South Africa or Saudi Arabia today, or Chile back in the 1970s, the Philippines back in the days of Marcos, you name it. I mean, the United States supports a lot of authoritarian regimes. Countries that we oppose, even the actual bad guys we oppose, supports a lot of authoritarianism. And I am, don't want to sit there and ask for a cookie saying this, but I am consistently opposed to all forms of authoritarianism, no matter where it comes from. So I like to be as consistent as I can be. So let's start on the top right now, and the man in charge, Brandon. And we'll start with Mr. Joe Biden. I think that's where we can start. Some people do not think he's being hawkish enough. I think he's being too damn hawkish. But remember, Joe Biden gave us the language that was written before it was even passed as legislation in response to 9/11. The Patriot Act is largely due to Joe Biden. This is basically a piece of legislation that Biden's fingerprints are all over. So as far as I'm concerned, Joe Biden is an authoritarian. I voted for Howie Hawkins last year. If Biden is the nominee in 2024, I am more likely to vote for the Green Party candidate as it stands right now. So Democrats, Republicans, just forget about my vote for president. So there you have it. Now let's talk about let's see, where do we go from here? Where do we go? Oh, good Lord. Where? Yeah, we'll start over here. All right. Give me a second here. Graphics are important. Let's see. Give me a moment. Here we go. Okay. We got censorship. And Jim Paske, who's the press secretary, was talking about, in response to domestic terrorism, which sucks. She's talking about, Ministry of Truth, fact checking. I call it Ministry of Truth. This sort of thing, which would punish people for saying things that are controversial, whether it's private messages or whether it's in an open forum online. This kind of internet censorship that's being championed by many people, including herself in this press conference, is very problematic. I'm a free speech guy. Always been, always will be. And this is very dangerous. Very dangerous. That's where a lot of the authoritarianism is coming from as well. And that's on the Democratic side. I am anti-partisan to the core. So, and I chose the Democrats first because they're the ones in charge. Senator Mitt Romney called for the arrest of Tulsi Gabbard. Now, I have my issues with Tulsi Gabbard. I used to support Tulsi Gabbard, not as my presidential candidate in 2020, but as a possible VP for Bernie Sanders. And that was when she gave the impression she was on the left. And I think that, unfortunately, she's been pushed to the right because a lot of corporate Democrats and half the progressive movement had a beef with her, and she had some welcoming arms within the paleoconservative Trump wing of the Republican Party, and libertarian-minded people seem to have liked her, and so she's warmed up into that direction. She is still largely not wrong about foreign policy, but in some areas she's moved away from a very base position she was in a couple of years ago. She is still sometimes correct on some foreign policy questions, mostly focusing on non-interventionism. And Mitt Romney wants her arrested for telling the truth about, crap that's going on when it comes to biohazard warfare with what's going on between Russia and Ukraine. And he just felt like that. He said recently that he thinks that she ought to be arrested for treason. Well, my answer to that is fuck Mitt Romney. So there is that. Now, I'm going to be a sexist pig for a second, and I'm going to say fuck Tulsi Gabbard, but not in a way that I would say fuck Mitt Romney. Fucking her sounds really, really fun, aside from her walking away for some terrible politics. Yes, I am a dirtbag leftist. Let's see here. Let's go with Donald Trump here, because with regard to Donald Trump, in 2018, and he said this before, but in 2018 he tweeted, "Isn't it a shame that someone can write an article or a book, totally make up stories from a picture of a person that is literally exact opposite of the fact, and get away with it without retribution or cost? Don't know why Washington politicians don't change libel laws." Well, Mr. Trump, there's this thing called the First Amendment. I know you are opposed to it, but there's this thing called the First Amendment, and that includes the right to be critical of politicians you disagree with. I mean, you call Ted Cruz Crooked Ted, Lying Ted, which actually was the truth. But some people may have thought there were some hardcore Ted Cruz supporters that thought you were an asshole for saying that. So under that circumstances, they could sue you for calling Ted Cruz Lying Ted. So or people like myself could sue Donald Trump for calling Bernie Sanders Crazy Bernie. Because I don't think Bernie Sanders is crazy. I kind of think he's a sellout at this point. He's not the worst, obviously, but he's not the type of person, or he's not the type that I once admired. The Bernie Sanders I once known and loved and mentored me, even though we never met. That Bernie Sanders I still like. This borderline Democrat today that he's sort of become, I'm a little critical. He will always get my support. But the fact that Donald Trump called him crazy, I don't think he's crazy at all. That's my point. So when Donald Trump gets his little fee-fees hurt And because of that, he thinks he has to have a right to go and sue anybody who talks shit about him. That's why he tries suing Bill Maher, and yeah, fuck Bill Maher. But he tries suing Bill Maher over a joke. It is obvious that Donald Trump is not an orangutan. And what's his name? Bill Maher said he was an orangutan. So I mean, it's a funny joke. I mean, you can't take a joke unless you're joking on someone. Really? So that's what we're stuck with, people. So and let's talk about authoritarianism abroad, because I have to go and make this known. And some of us who are opposed to what's going on between Russia and Ukraine I'm not for the United States, but I'm not for Russia either. I'm not for the Ukraine, and I'm not for NATO. I am a third camp internationalist. And the thing about it is, with regard to Russia, there's plenty to criticize Russia on. I do not think that Vladimir Putin and Donald Trump were politically embedded with each other. That's a lie that was concocted by Hillary Clinton years ago, because she needed somebody to blame for her losing the election. And the only person you can blame for losing the election was Hillary Clinton. She tried blaming Jill Stein. She and her followers tried blaming Bernie Sanders, tried blaming Susan Sarandon, Vladimir Putin, you name it. Anybody but Hillary Clinton herself. She was a lousy candidate. Now, is there a reason to criticize Russia? Absolutely. Vladimir Putin discriminates against the LGBTQ community. LGBTQ community are treated like third-class citizens. They may not be executed in the way they are in places like Saudi Arabia or Iran. I would argue that's much worse to be a member of the LGBTQ community in Saudi Arabia or Iran or, whatever around the world, obviously. But Russia, they're not treated too well either. And that's a reason to oppose Putin. I wouldn't want Putin to be the premier of the United States either. But there is a group of Americans that seem to be sympathetic to Putin, and on the far right, and I'm differentiating far right from on the authoritarian right. Let me put it that way, as opposed to the mainstream right. Some on the authoritarian right wants to go and basically support Putin because they look at Russia as the last vestiges of a white, quote unquote, white Christian West. Russia's in Western Russia. Russia is pretty much a very white country all around, but it's still very diverse. I mean, you got a Muslim population, and they're obviously white. You got an Asian population in places that borders, China, Mongolia, North Korea, and that area, the Sakhalin Highlands. You got Eastern Orthodoxy that runs across most ethnic groups in Russia, but there are other, there is a Jewish population there. There is, there's more diversity than people would think. A lot of Americans would think Russia is just like a very, very white country, probably one of the whitest places in the world. So a point I'm trying to make is that Russia, this whole idea of demonizing Russia by liberal left and some on the right here in this country, the authoritarian right, loving Russia because of what they view as the last vestiges of a white Christian West. That's what it's all about with them. So when you hear people like Nick Fuentes and people like that, cheerleading Russia, we know what that's all about. Now, to say that Vladimir Putin is Hitler or some other kind of white nationalist on a global scale is a bit much. There are no concentration camps in Russia that right now that would resemble that of Germany. Ukraine is not the Sudeten land, and people who are actually critical of war, wanting calmer heads to resolve this without getting into a skirmish between the U.S. NATO alliance and Russia itself, drawing China and into this, which could turn it into a hot war. We're not being Neville Chamberlain in 1938. We're not being Neville Chamberlain at all. We think that nuclear war sucks. And are y'all freaking kidding me about trying to start a nuclear war? I want Ukraine to be independent. I don't want Ukraine to be taken over by Russia. But I don't want to go and start World War III because, a bunch of corporate Democrats got a hate boner for Donald Trump, and they're convinced that he's tied in with Vladimir Putin. And then you got Republicans like Lindsey Graham, who's never met a war that he didn't like, and this is just another opportunity to do that. And then you got Pat Robertson, who wants to, hold on a second here. Let's do this. Crazy Pat Robertson is also back. So hold tight here. Graphics are important. He gets a graphic too, even though he is an SOB. Let's see. A man is fucking crazy as hell. This old kook, Pat Robertson. And I mean, he's wanting to start World War III also with Russia. He's criticizing Joe Biden because Joe Biden is not hawkish enough to standing up to Putin. You see, let me tell you a little secret about Pat Robertson. In 1988, he was one of the Republicans that was trying to get the Republican nomination for president. And he actually thought Reagan was too soft in dealing with Mikhail Gorbachev. And there was some, at least when Bob Dole thought Reagan was soft, at least he wasn't doing it from a Christian fundamentalist perspective. But Pat Robertson is so obsessed with prophecy and the apocalypse. He wants to, at any opportunity, see it happen. And so he's wanting Joe Biden to threaten Russia with nuclear annihilation. And you know what will happen if the United States launch a nuclear warhead on Russia? Russia will launch a nuclear warhead right back. And it won't be just the United States. It will be the United States. It will be its allies, NATO allies. They will get involved. And you will have World War III on your hands. China would get involved. And billions will be wiped out within, the first year. After this nuclear conflict, several billion people will be dead as a result or dying of radiation cancer. I hope nobody's listening to this nutcase had enough of him in the 1980s, so in the 1990s. So anyway, that's pretty much what I wanted to share with you all. As I said, there's authoritarianism all around is what I'm trying to say. And I declare anybody, I don't care what side of the fence you're on, whether you're a liberal or you're a conservative, you're whatever you are ideologically, if you support free speech and you support individual rights for all people, regardless. We can have our disagreements on tax policies. We can have our disagreements on healthcare, what to do about healthcare, what to do about but if you're anti-war and you're a civil liberties person, you're an ally, and I mean that. So if you like what you heard, please press like and hit that, and comment. If you dislike what I have to say, comment anyway. We will have a conversation. Feel free to share the content on this channel. As a First Amendment absolutist, it's my duty to inform you to create your own platform and utilize it, because we're in fact the muckrakers of our time. Hit that notification bell. Hit that hit the notification bell. Hit that subscribe button. And remember, specifically for my comrades, we have a wage we have a class struggle to fight on. So carry on with that. And until next time, remember, we're all Julian Assange. Always remember that. Anyway.